You know how sometimes you can instantly loathe someone as quickly as you can fall in love? Maybe it's the same chemical reaction, just in reverse. I work for a chain of big box stores as a mid-level manager. I don't really supervise anyone because my job mainly involves dealing with external contacts, so whatever happens inside the store doesn't affect me much. That's why, when I started dating Tiffany, one of the sales associates, I didn't think it was a big deal. I wasn't her boss, so there was no scandal. We weren't flaunting our relationship, but we weren't hiding it either. In a place where gossip spreads faster than wildfire, especially among the women's team, everyone found out eventually. Tiffany and I had been together for a year and were making wedding plans. Honestly, if Tiffany hadn't told her coworkers in confidence, it might have stayed under wraps longer. But you know how that goes. In confidence. To one friend who blabs to another, and soon the entire staff knows. Our relationship was great. We never fought, and we were intimate almost every night. Tiffany was gorgeous, pretty face, killer figure. She'd come to work about an hour before me and leave an hour earlier too. Everything was smooth until Chase showed up. Chase was hired for warehouse work, unloading trucks, moving pallets, stocking shelves. At first glance, he looked ordinary. Average face, athletic build, taller and broader than me. But he was a shameless flirt. Word got around quickly that he hit on nearly every woman in the store. He'd pick one, charm her for a while, hook up with her, and eventually, things would crash and burn. She'd cut him off, and he'd move on to the next. This wouldn't have bothered me at all if he hadn't taken an immediate dislike to me. Chase would make sly, stinging remarks whenever he could, always in front of others. They weren't the kind of insults that would make me punch him, but they stung enough to make me look like an idiot. You know how it is. Later that night, you replay the conversation and think, I should have said this. That would have shut him up. But by then, it's too late. For example, he'd see my polished shoes and say, guess the only workout Logan can handle is bending over to buff those loafers. Or, if I was fidgeting, he'd crack, dude, if you're that scared about making it to the bathroom, we've got adult diapers on aisle 6. People laughed, even Tiffany sometimes. I started avoiding him, but Chase seemed to enjoy cornering me. He'd pop up when I least expected it, throwing out mocking jokes. Then he found out about Tiffany and me. More than once, I saw him chatting with her when no customers were around, presumably while bringing out merchandise. He'd be flirting, and Tiffany would giggle, twisting a strand of her hair, the way she used to with me. That night, I told her everything. I explained how Chase was bullying me with sly digs, how he had a reputation as a player, and how I was sure he'd set his sights on her. Tiffany, I said, I need you to cut him off. No chatting, no hanging out. Call me paranoid, but he's already screwed half the women here, or at least tried. For him, it's just a sport. She gave me a soft look and said, I love you. I'm not letting him get anywhere with me. Don't worry. I should have felt reassured, but deep down, I wished she'd promised to avoid him completely, or better yet, tell him to back off. The next day, I saw them laughing together in the main aisle, far from her department. Her body language was unmistakable, feet pointed at him, shoulders rolled back, chest slightly out, her hand lightly holding her other wrist. I've read enough marketing books to recognize the signals. She liked him. I confronted her again that night, but she flat out denied everything. I could have told her I saw them or checked security footage, but it wouldn't have made a difference. They hadn't crossed the line yet, and if I pushed too hard, she'd just become more secretive. Then Saturday came. Tiffany didn't come home after her shift. She texted saying she was meeting girlfriends and would be home late. I knew exactly where she was, even without proof. The proof came anyway. Chase sent me a link to a video stored in his cloud. I watched as Tiffany was completely absorbed in pleasing him. Then Chase turned the camera on himself, smirked into the lens, and flipped me off, making it clear he'd filmed this with me in mind. Afterward, he panned back to her, flicked her nose gently to grab her attention, and said, "We'll watch this later and remember the good times. Blow a kiss." She smiled, puckered her lips, and made a V sign, completely oblivious that Chase was planning to share the video. That was the end for me. I packed her things into boxes, drove to her parents' house, and left them at the door. I rang the bell and bolted before anyone could see me. But I wasn't done. I knew Chase would try to humiliate me at work. He'd X